He walked out before she could tell him she was pregnant. 6 years later, he found out in the worst possible place, under the gold chandeliers of the Plaza Hotel, in front of investors, socialites, cameras, and the woman who had spent years making sure he never knew the truth. Maren Winslow was holding a silver tray of champagne when the doors opened, and her little boy stepped into the ballroom looking for her. One small hand clutched a paper airplane. His dark hair was messy from the wind outside. His gray eyes searched the room. And across the ballroom, Callahan Reed stopped breathing. Because the child had his eyes, his face, his blood. And Maren, the woman he had hated for 6 years, went completely still. Before that night, Maren Winslow had built a life out of exhaustion, discipline, and silence. She lived in a small Queens apartment with a radiator that hissed too loudly in winter, and a kitchen table that doubled as a homework desk, bill station, and dinner table. Every morning, she woke at 5:30 before the city softened into daylight. She packed Noah's lunch, braided Patience into her own tired hands, and drove him to school in a Toyota Corolla that made a nervous sound every time she turned left. The car was old, but it started. Most days, that was enough. Noah was 6 years old, bright, curious, and painfully observant. He noticed everything. The way his mother counted groceries before putting them in the cart. The way she smiled at landlords even when her jaw tightened. The way she tucked bills into a folder and whispered, "Not today," as if debt were a person knocking at the door. Maren worked brunch shifts at a midtown restaurant and evening events whenever a staffing agency called. She had once been a nursing student. She had once believed her life would be clean, structured, useful. Then her mother got sick. Tuition became impossible, and Callahan Reed walked out of her life before she could say the 2 words that would have changed everything. "I am pregnant." Pattern interrupt. Have you ever tried to tell the truth to someone who had already decided you were guilty? That was Maren's wound. Not that he left. Not only that. It was the way he looked at her before he left, like she had sold something sacred. Like love had been a transaction, and she had taken the highest bid. The night he walked away, rain soaked through her coat as she stood outside a Manhattan hotel, one hand on her stomach, the other gripping a pregnancy test hidden in her pocket. She called his name once, twice. He turned around just long enough to say, "I know what you did. Do not follow me." Then he stepped into a black Mercedes S-Class, and the taillights disappeared into traffic. She never chased the car. That mattered. She had chased the truth. She had chased the man she loved. But she would not chase contempt. 6 years later, she still carried that moment like a small stone under her ribs. It hurt when she breathed too deeply. It hurt when Noah asked about his father. It hurt when the school forms had a blank space she could not fill without reopening a wound. One Wednesday morning, while Noah ate cereal and drew superheroes on the back of an overdue electric bill, he asked, "Mom, did my dad know about me?" Maren's hand froze over the sink. Outside, a delivery truck groaned down the street. Somewhere upstairs, a neighbor shouted for someone to hurry up. Ordinary sounds. Small life. Big question. She turned around slowly. Noah looked at her with the kind of innocence that makes lying feel like a sin. She dried her hands on a towel and came to sit beside him. "Your father did not know everything he should have known," she said. Noah frowned. "That is not an answer." Maren smiled sadly. "No, baby, it is not. But it is the only one I can give you until I understand how to say the rest without hurting you." Noah accepted that because children often forgive what adults cannot. He pushed his cereal bowl toward her and showed her the superhero he had drawn. He gave him a cape, he said. but not a mask. Why no mask? Marin asked. Because heroes should not hide. The words landed inside her harder than they should have. That afternoon, Marin received 3 reminders. One from the landlord about a rent increase. One from the school about scholarship documents requiring parental information. One from the pharmacy about her mother's medication. Her iPhone screen lit up again and again like a quiet alarm. She sat in the break room behind the restaurant, still in her black vest and white shirt, and opened the worn copy of Atomic Habits she carried in her tote bag. It was not some dreamy self-help fantasy for her. It was survival math. 1 habit, 1 shift, 1 payment, 1 more day without breaking. Her best friend, Tessa Monroe, called during her 10-minute break. Tessa was a nurse at the same hospital where Marin's mother had been treated. The kind of woman who could insert an IV, scare off a rude doctor, and make you laugh while your life collapsed. "You sound tired," Tessa said. "I am fine. That is not what I asked." Marin leaned her head against the break room wall. The school wants Noah's father listed. The landlord raised rent. Mom needs the expensive refill. And I just got offered a private event Friday night at the plaza. Tessa went quiet. The plaza? Reed Capital is hosting something there, right? Marin closed her eyes. I know. Tessa's voice sharpened. Marin, if Callahan is there, you do not owe him your silence anymore. Marin looked down at her hands. They were rough from sanitizer and dish steam. Hands that had held a newborn alone. Hands that had signed hospital paperwork alone. Hands that had never once dialed Callahan after the final insult, because dignity was the last thing she could afford to lose. I am not going for him, she said. I am going because the shift pays double. Mini cliffhanger. But some doors do not open because you choose them. Some doors open because the past has finally found your address. Callahan Reed lived 50 floors above Park Avenue in a penthouse that looked more like a museum than a home. Glass walls, black marble, a Manhattan skyline sharp enough to cut through the night. Every object in the place had been chosen by designers, assistants, consultants, anyone except the man who slept there. His MacBook Pro sat open on a walnut desk, stock market tickers glowing beside emails from board members, lawyers, and investors who treated his attention like oxygen. He had built Reed Capital into one of the most powerful fintech firms on Wall Street, and people called him disciplined, brilliant, untouchable. They used better words than lonely. They always did. He wore control like armor, perfect suit, perfect posture, perfect silence. But every night, when the elevator doors closed and the city noise faded beneath him, the armor became heavy. 6 years ago, Callahan had been 31, ambitious, proud, and foolish enough to believe that power could protect him from heartbreak. Marin had been 22, working part-time while studying nursing, with a laugh that made him forget meetings, and a softness that made his world feel less like a transaction. He loved her in secret at first, because his family would have called her unsuitable. Then he loved her openly because hiding her began to feel like betrayal. But old money and new ambition have a cruel language. They do not always say, leave her. Sometimes they say, think carefully. Sometimes they say, protect the company. Sometimes they say, women like that know exactly what they are doing. Celine Hartwell had learned that language fluently. Celine was not Callahan's great love. She was the daughter of a major investor, beautiful in a cold, polished way, always dressed like she had stepped out of a Fifth Avenue window display. Cartier at her wrist, Dior on her shoulders, venom under her tongue. She had wanted Callahan not because she loved him, but because he represented a crown she believed belonged on her head. Pattern interrupt. Here is the dangerous thing about lies. The best ones do not ask you to believe something impossible. They ask you to believe something you already fear. Callahan feared being used. His father had been used by friends, partners, women who smiled at dinners and left with shares, secrets, or settlements. His childhood had taught him suspicion before trust. So when Selene showed him messages that appeared to come from Marin, when his assistant confirmed Marin had supposedly taken money from a family account, when a voicemail from Marin mysteriously vanished before he could hear it, the lie found an open wound and climbed inside. The message said, "I took the money. Please do not look for me. I am not keeping it." It looked like Marin's number. It used her words in the wrong order. It broke him cleanly. That same night, outside the hotel, Marin arrived breathless, rain shining on her face, trying to tell him the truth. But Callahan had already been poisoned. He did not ask. He did not listen. He punished her with certainty. 6 years later, he still told himself he had moved on. That was why he agreed to attend the Reed Capital Charity Gala with Selene Hartwell beside him. It was strategic, not emotional. Their rumored engagement kept Hartwell Investments close, stabilized a pending acquisition, and pleased the board. Callahan told himself that love was a liability, and Selene was simply a contract wearing diamonds. His executive assistant, Miles Archer, stood near the penthouse doors with an iPad in hand. "The Plaza team confirmed your arrival for 7:30. Hartwell Press wants one photo with Miss Hartwell near the donor wall. No personal questions. No engagement confirmation unless you authorize." Callahan adjusted his cufflinks. No confirmation. Miles hesitated. Miss Hartwell has been telling people otherwise. Then she will enjoy correcting herself. Miles almost smiled but knew better. There was one more thing. The event staffing agency sent over a final list. "Do you want me to review it?" Callahan gave him a look. "Why would I review waitstaff?" "No reason, sir." Miles lowered the iPad. Just being thorough. In that small pause, fate stood quietly in the room. On the staffing list, buried between names no one important would read, was Marin Winslow. Callahan did not see it. Not yet. At 7:15, Selene arrived wearing emerald silk and a smile designed for cameras. She kissed the air near Callahan's cheek and glanced around his penthouse like she was mentally replacing everything with brighter, louder versions of herself. "You look severe," she said. "It is a charity gala. Try not to frighten the donors." "I frighten donors into giving more," Callahan replied. Selene laughed as if he had offered affection. On the ride to the plaza, she spoke of photographers, board optics, the Hartwell acquisition, and how elegant their announcement would look against the ballroom backdrop. Callahan watched Manhattan blur past the tinted window. Rain threatened, but did not fall. For one dangerous second, he remembered another night, another rain. Marin's face outside the hotel, her mouth opening as if she had one last thing to say. He pushed the memory away. Some men bury regret under work. Callahan had built an empire over his mini cliffhanger. But empires do not protect men from blood. And by the end of that night, a child would walk into a ballroom and tear 6 years of lies apart without saying a word. The Plaza Hotel ballroom glowed like a secret built for rich people. Chandeliers warmed the ceiling. White roses climbed silver stands. Waiters moved between donors with trays of champagne, and every laugh sounded expensive. Marin arrived through the staff entrance wearing her black uniform, her hair pinned tight, her name tag clipped straight. She checked the event map, memorized table numbers, and told herself what she always told herself before stepping into rooms where people looked through her. You are here to work. You are not here to be seen. But the body remembers before the mind gives permission. The moment Callahan Reed entered the ballroom, Maren felt it like cold water down her spine. She was standing near the East Bar, loading glasses onto a tray. The crowd shifted. Cameras flashed. A murmur moved through the room. Then she saw him, taller than memory, sharper, older in a way that made him look more dangerous, not softer. He wore a black suit cut so precisely it seemed less worn than commanded. A Rolex caught the light at his wrist. A Montblanc pen rested in his jacket pocket like a quiet weapon. Beside him, Selina Hartwell glittered in emerald silk, one hand resting on his arm with the ownership of a woman who had practiced it in mirrors. Maren's fingers tightened around the tray. Not enough to shake. That mattered. Tessa had once told her, "You can fall apart later." Maren had turned that into a life rule. Pattern interrupt. Look closely now. The most painful reunions are not the ones where people scream. They are the ones where someone you loved looks at you and pretends your ghost has not just entered the room. Callahan saw her near the champagne station. His steps slowed. Only half a second. Maybe less. But Maren saw it because she had once known every small change in his face. His jaw tightened. His eyes hardened. The room kept moving around them, but between them, time held its breath. Selene noticed. Of course she noticed. Her smile sharpened. "Well," she murmured, loud enough for him, soft enough for poison, "Manhattan really does recycle everyone." Callahan did not answer. Maren lifted the tray and walked toward assigned tables, each step measured. She passed donors discussing tax shelters, women comparing vacation homes in the Hamptons, men checking their phones while pretending to listen. Her iPhone buzzed once in her apron pocket. A text from Tessa. "Noah is with me. He is fine. Do your shift. Breathe." Maren inhaled slowly and kept walking. For 20 minutes, she avoided Callahan's section. Then the floor manager whispered, "Table 9 needs champagne. Read table." Maren did not ask someone else to go. Dignity is not the same as running from pain. She picked up a fresh tray and approached table 9. Callahan looked up before she arrived, as if his body had sensed her. Selene leaned back, enjoying it. Maren served the first guest, then the second, then Selene. When she reached Callahan, his hand covered the rim of his glass. "No champagne," he said. His voice was exactly as she remembered. Low, controlled, unfairly familiar. "Of course, Mr. Reed," Maren said. "Not Callahan. Never Callahan." Something flickered in his eyes. Selene smiled wider. "How professional," she said. "I suppose practice helps when one learns her place." The words were quiet. The humiliation was not. A woman at the table glanced up. A man paused mid-sentence. Maren held the tray steady. She did not blush. She did not lower her eyes. She simply said, "I have always known my place. It is wherever I can stand without lying." Silence moved across the table like a blade. Callahan looked at her then, really looked, and for the first time that night, certainty shifted. Selene's smile thinned. "Careful," she said. "Staff should not speak to guests that way." Maren turned to her. "Then guests should not speak to staff as if kindness is beneath them." The floor manager saw the tension and hurried over, but Maren had already stepped back. "Excuse me," she said, and walked away before anyone could dismiss her. In the service corridor, she pressed one hand against the wall. Not because she was weak, because memory can hit like a body. She let herself breathe once, twice. Then she straightened. A young dishwasher named Ben, barely 20, stood nearby holding a rack of glasses. "That was brutal," he whispered. "Are you okay?" Marin took the rack from him because his hands were shaking more than hers. "I have survived worse than rich women with bad manners." He grinned despite himself. "That's going on a t-shirt." She almost smiled. Almost. Back in the ballroom, Callahan watched her return to work. No drama, no begging, no performance. That bothered him. The Marin he had been told about, the woman who supposedly took money and disappeared, should have looked guilty, nervous, eager to explain. This woman looked tired, proud, unreachable. Celine leaned toward him. "Do not tell me you feel sorry for her." Callahan's gaze remained on Marin. "I do not like cruelty." Celine laughed softly. "Since when?" Before he could answer, the ballroom doors opened at the far end. A small commotion stirred near the entrance. Tessa Monroe rushed in, cheeks flushed, holding Noah's coat in one hand. Noah had slipped past her, chasing the paper airplane he had made in the lobby while waiting for Marin's shift to end. It sailed across the marble threshold and landed near the donor wall. Noah ran after it. Marin saw him first. Her heart stopped. "Noah," she whispered. Callahan turned at the sound of her voice. The boy bent to pick up the paper airplane, then looked up at the room with wide gray eyes. Callahan's gray eyes. The same serious brow, the same straight nose, the same way of standing too still when overwhelmed. The ballroom noise faded around Callahan. Celine's hand tightened around her champagne flute. Marin moved toward her son, but not fast enough to stop the moment from becoming public. Noah spotted her and smiled. "Mommy, one word, one detonation." Callahan looked from Noah to Marin, then back to Noah. His face changed so subtly most people missed it, but Marin did not. She saw the first crack in the man who had walked away. Mini cliffhanger, and Selena saw it too, which meant the next attack would not be careless. It would be desperate. Marin reached Noah near the donor wall and crouched in front of him, smoothing his hair with hands that wanted to tremble but refused. "Baby, what happened?" Noah held up the paper airplane. It flew too far. Tessa arrived breathless behind him. "I am so sorry, Marin. He was right beside me, and then the elevator opened, and he just slipped through." "It is okay," Marin said, although nothing was okay. Not the ballroom, not Callahan's stare, not Selena standing across the room with fury hidden beneath flawless makeup. Noah looked past Marin and saw Callahan. Children do not understand social danger. They understand faces, his head tilted. "Mom," he whispered, "why does that man look like my picture?" Marin's stomach dropped. "What picture?" "The one in your drawer. The old one. The one where you are smiling." Pattern interrupt. There are moments when a mother's entire body becomes a shield. Marin stood, placing herself slightly in front of Noah, but the damage was already in the air. Callahan had moved closer without realizing it. Miles Archer appeared behind him, alert and confused. Selena followed, smile gone cold. "Marin," Callahan said. Her name in his mouth after 6 years sounded almost indecent. She lifted her chin. "Mr. Reed." He flinched at that. "Is he yours?" Marin glanced at Noah, then back at Callahan. Yes, the word was simple, final. Callahan swallowed. "How old is he?" Celine cut in before Marin could answer. "Callahan, this is not the place." But he did not look at Selene. "How old?" he repeated. Marin's eyes held his. 6. The number struck him harder than any accusation. 6. The exact length of his absence. The exact measurement of his failure. Noah tugged Marin's sleeve. "Mom?" "It is all right, sweetheart," she said softly. Tessa stepped forward. "I can take him back to the lobby." Marin nodded. Noah resisted. "But Mom, I want to know why he looks sad." No one moved. Not even Celine. Callahan's face tightened, but his eyes shone with something dangerous. Not tears exactly, but the threat of truth pressing upward. Tessa gently guided Noah away. Marin watched until he was out of the ballroom. Then she turned back to Callahan. "You should return to your guests." Callahan stepped closer. "Is he mine?" The room did not hear it. But Marin did. Every syllable cut through 6 years of labor pains, fever nights, unpaid bills, school meetings, birthday candles, and the empty chair Noah had never known to miss until he was old enough to ask. Her voice stayed quiet. "You lost the right to ask that like I hid him from you." Callahan's jaw clenched. "I was told." She laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "Yes, you were always very good at listening to everyone except me." Selena touched his arm. "Callahan, she is manipulating you. Look at the timing. She appears at your gala with a child, and suddenly—" Marin turned to Selene. "My son is not timing. He is a child. Lower your voice when you speak about him." The command was soft, but it landed like a slap. Callahan noticed. Celine did too. A photographer near the donor wall lifted his camera, sensing scandal. Callahan saw it and stepped between the lens and Marin. Instinctive, protective, his first real action. "No photos," he said to Miles. "Now." Miles moved immediately, speaking to security with controlled urgency. Callahan looked at Marin. "We need to talk privately." "No," she said. His expression hardened out of habit, but it did not work on her anymore. "This concerns me. It concerned you 6 years ago. You walked away. I did not know. You did not ask." The silence after that was worse than shouting. Selena's eyes flashed. "Marin, how convenient that you kept this child hidden until Callahan became one of the richest men in New York." Marin's gaze went cold. "I kept him fed. I kept him safe. I kept him loved. Do not confuse my silence with strategy." For a second, even Callahan looked ashamed. The floor manager approached, nervous, whispering Marin's name. Donors were watching. The event was tilting towards spectacle. Marin made the decision before anyone could make it for her. She untied her apron and handed it to the manager. "I am sorry for the disruption. I will leave." Callahan's head snapped up. "You do not have to do that." Marin looked at him. "I know. That is why I am choosing it." She walked toward the service exit, not the grand doors, because she would not parade her pain for people who paid $10,000 a plate to feel generous. Callahan started after her, but Selena gripped his sleeve. "If you follow her, the press will shred us by morning." Callahan looked down at her hand on his arm, then at the service corridor where Marin had disappeared. For 6 years, he had chosen optics, family pressure, board strategy, the clean story, the useful lie. This time, he pulled his arm free. Let them try. He followed Marin into the corridor, but by the time he reached the staff exit, she was gone. Outside, Manhattan wind cut through the alley. A yellow cab pulled away from the curb. Through the rear window, he saw Marin holding Noah close, her face turned away. Noah looked back once. The boy's gray eyes met his through the glass. Callahan stood in the cold, with every word he should have spoken trapped behind his teeth. Miles appeared beside him. "Sir, do you want me to find out where she lives?" Callahan did not answer immediately. The old Callahan would have ordered it. The powerful Callahan could have had her address in minutes. But the man standing in the alley had just watched a child look at him like a question. "No," he said finally. "Not like that." "Then what?" Miles asked. Callahan stared at the street where the cab had vanished. "Find out what happened 6 years ago. Quietly. Everything. Mini cliffhanger." Behind them, inside the Plaza Hotel, Selene Hartwell stepped into an empty hallway, took out her phone, and made a call to someone from the past. She said only 6 words. "We have a problem." He saw the boy. The next morning, Maren woke before her alarm because anxiety had already been waiting beside the bed. Noah slept curled under a blue blanket, one arm around a stuffed bear missing one eye. For several seconds, she allowed herself to watch him breathe. That was the ritual that kept her alive when he was a newborn, and she feared she was not enough. Watch him breathe, stand up, begin again. Her phone was full of unknown numbers, 2 messages from the staffing agency, 1 from her landlord, and 12 from Tessa. She ignored the unknown numbers and called Tessa first. "Are you okay?" Tessa asked before hello. Maren rubbed her forehead. "Define okay? Did he follow you?" "He tried. I left. Good. Also terrible. Also good." Tessa sighed. "What are you going to do?" Maren looked at Noah. "The right thing. I just do not know what that is yet." Pattern interrupt. Doing the right thing sounds clean in stories. In real life, it comes with childcare, rent, trauma, legal fear, and a child asking why a stranger has his eyes. Across Manhattan, Callahan did not sleep at all. By 7 in the morning, he was in his private office at Reed Capital, high above Wall Street, with Miles Archer, a forensic data consultant, and a legal pad filled with 6 years of assumptions. On the conference table lay his old iPhone, the one he had kept powered off in a drawer like a sealed coffin. Miles had recovered it from storage. The consultant connected it to a laptop. "We can extract metadata," he said. "If messages were spoofed, forwarded, or restored from a backup, there may be traces." Callahan stood at the window, watching the city move beneath him with obscene normalcy. People bought coffee. Taxis honked. Markets opened. His world had ended quietly overnight, and Manhattan did not care. Miles cleared his throat. "Sir, there is something else." Callahan turned. "I pulled the wire record you asked about. The payment supposedly made to Miss Winslow from your family office. It did not go to her account. It went to an intermediary account under a shell LLC. Who controlled it? We are still tracing it." Callahan's expression darkened. "Trace faster." The consultant looked up from the phone. "Mr. Reed, this message is not right." "The one from Maren?" The consultant nodded. "The sending number matches her contact, but the device identifier does not match her phone model from that year. It was likely sent through a cloned service or web relay." Miles went very still. Callahan walked toward the table. "Show me." The message appeared on the screen. "I took the money. Do not look for me. I am not keeping it." 6 years of hatred condensed into 3 lines. Callahan stared at it until the words blurred. "It is fake?" he asked. "I would not use that word in court yet," the consultant said carefully. "But technically, yes. It did not originate from the device assigned to that number." Callahan's hand curled around the back of a chair. Wood creaked under his grip. Miles said, "There was also a voicemail log. Deleted before playback. From Marin's number. Time-stamped 11 minutes before you left the hotel that night." Callahan closed his eyes. In his memory, rain fell. Marin called his name. Her hand was pressed against her stomach. He had thought she was acting. He had thought every tear was theater. He had been so sure. The shame was immediate and physical. It moved through him like fever. "Get me the hospital records," he said. "We need consent for that," Miles replied. "Then we do this correctly. No illegal access, no pressure, no intimidation. Find a way to ask." Meanwhile, Celine sat in a quiet corner of a private club near Fifth Avenue, sunglasses on though she was indoors, speaking to a man whose hands shook around his coffee cup. His name was Daniel Price. 6 years ago, he had been Callahan's junior assistant. Now he looked older than his age, soft from stress, expensive suit slightly wrong at the shoulders. "You said this would never come back," Daniel whispered. Celine removed her sunglasses slowly. "I said it would not come back if everyone remained intelligent. There is a child, Celine. A child who looks exactly like him. Then you should have done your job better 6 years ago." Daniel flinched. "I deleted one voicemail. I forwarded one message. You told me she was trying to trap him. You told me the family approved." Celine's eyes cooled. "And you accepted the money. That makes your moral crisis very touching, but useless." Daniel looked toward the door. "I am not lying for you again." Celine leaned in. "You will not need to lie. You will only need to stay quiet. Because if you speak, the fraud does not land on me alone. It lands on you. Wire manipulation, digital impersonation, obstruction. Maybe worse if Callahan decides to make an example out of someone." Daniel's face drained. Celine smiled. "There it is. Memory. A useful emotion." Back in Queens, Marin took Noah to school and tried to pretend the world had not shifted. At drop-off, Noah held her hand longer than usual. "Is the sad man my dad?" Marin crouched in front of him. She could have lied. A smaller lie. A softer one. But children deserve truth wrapped in gentleness, not deception wrapped in comfort. "I think he might be," she said. Noah blinked. "Does he know me?" "Not yet. Does he want to?" Marin's throat tightened. "I do not know." Noah looked down. "If he does not, that is okay. You want me." That broke her more than any insult Selena had ever given. She pulled him close, breathing into his hair. "I want you more than anything in this world." After school drop-off, Marin went to the hospital to visit her mother, Elaine Winslow, whose body had survived surgery, but not without cost. Elaine was proud, sharp, and too perceptive to be fooled by Marin's tired smile. "You saw him," Elaine said. Marin sat beside the bed. News travels fast. Tessa travels faster. Elaine reached for her hand. "Did he know?" Marin looked toward the window. "No. Not until last night." Elaine exhaled slowly. "Then the truth is awake now. Be careful. Truth waking up can make liars dangerous. Mini cliffhanger." That afternoon, an envelope arrived at Marin's apartment with no return address. Inside was a copy of the fake message Callahan had received 6 years ago and a handwritten note. "Ask him who benefited when he hated you." Marin stared at the anonymous note until the words seemed to move. "Ask him who benefited when he hated you." She knew the answer before she admitted it. Celine. The woman had always been there at the edge of Callahan's world, smiling like a friend, waiting like a creditor. 6 years ago, Celine had called Maren sweet in a tone that meant poor. She had complimented her thrift store dress as brave. She had once told her, "Some women are meant to inspire powerful men, and some women are meant to marry them." Maren had been young then, young enough to think cruelty needed volume. Now she knew better. The quiet kind was more expensive. That evening, Maren received a call from the staffing agency. The plaza incident had embarrassed them, but another private dinner needed an experienced server urgently at the River Cafe in Brooklyn. The client had specifically requested staff who could handle high-profile guests. Maren almost said no. Then she looked at the rent notice on the fridge. She said yes. Pattern interrupt. Survival does not pause for heartbreak. Bills do not care that your past just walked through a ballroom wearing a Rolex. The River Cafe glittered under the Brooklyn Bridge with Manhattan shining across the water. It was beautiful in a way that made Maren ache, because beauty often belonged to people who had time to enjoy it. She arrived early, tied her apron, and promised herself she would get through one more night. Then Celine walked in, not as a guest by accident, as the guest of honor. Maren understood immediately. This was not fate. This was a trap with table settings. Celine was hosting a small donor dinner for a women's leadership foundation, the kind of event where cruel women used soft language and charity vocabulary. She wore cream silk and Tiffany earrings, luminous and poisonous. When she saw Maren, she widened her eyes with fake surprise. "Oh, Maren, how determined you are!" The guests turned. Maren held a water pitcher. "Good evening, Miss Hartwell." Celine tilted her head. "I hope last night did not cause trouble for you. It must be difficult, balancing work and all those personal complications." Maren poured water calmly. Less difficult than balancing lies. A woman at the table coughed. Celine's smile froze. Callahan was not supposed to be at the dinner, but he arrived 10 minutes later. Celine had invited him to witness Maren being made small. What she did not understand was that men who have begun to doubt a lie watch differently. Callahan entered with Miles at his side and stopped when he saw Maren. Maren's eyes flashed once, but she continued serving. Celine rose to greet him. "I thought a quieter dinner might help us reset after last night's unpleasantness." Callahan looked at the table, then at Maren. "Did you know she was working here?" Celine laughed lightly. "Callahan, staffing is not my department." Miles, standing behind him, checked his iPad. "Actually, Miss Hartwell's office confirmed the final staff list this afternoon." The room went still. Celine's gaze snapped to Miles. Callahan turned to her slowly. "Interesting." Celine recovered quickly. "I may have approved logistics. I do not memorize servers." Maren moved to clear a plate. Celine shifted her wine glass just enough that Maren's elbow brushed it. Red wine spilled across the white tablecloth and splashed onto Celine's cream dress. Celine gasped with perfect timing. "Oh my God." The table erupted in murmurs. Maren froze, pitcher in hand. She had served long enough to know the difference between accident and performance. Celine stood, eyes bright with rage disguised as hurt. This is what happens when people bring their personal desperation into professional spaces. Callahan's jaw tightened. Maren set the pitcher down. "I did not spill that." Celine laughed. "Of course you did not. Nothing is ever your fault, is it? Not the money, not the disappearance, not showing up with a child 6 years later." There it was. Public. Ugly. Intended. Guests stared. One woman whispered. Another reached for her phone. Maren felt heat rise in her face, but her voice stayed level. My son is not a scandal for you to use as entertainment. Selena stepped closer. Then perhaps you should have thought of that before bringing him near Callahan. Callahan moved. Not quickly, not dramatically, but decisively. He placed himself between Selene and Maren. Enough, he said. Selene blinked. Excuse me? I said enough. His voice did not rise, but every person at the table heard the authority in it. Selene tried to smile. You are defending her now? I am stopping you from humiliating a woman who is working. Selena's face tightened. She lied to you. Did she? Callahan asked. 2 words. A crack of thunder. Maren looked at him. Selene went pale. Callahan continued, eyes on Selene. Because I have started reviewing what I was told. And the facts are not behaving the way your story did. A guest whispered Callahan's name. Phones lowered. The energy shifted. Selene laughed too loudly. This is absurd. Are you really going to let nostalgia cloud your judgment? Callahan turned to Maren. I am sorry. Not for everything yet. He did not deserve to say everything yet. But for this. For allowing this to happen in front of me once before and doing nothing. Maren held his gaze. Apology accepted for tonight. Not for 6 years. He nodded. Fair. That one word mattered more than a speech. He did not argue. He did not demand forgiveness. He accepted the boundary. Selene grabbed her clutch. You are making a mistake. Callahan looked at her. I made one 6 years ago. I am trying to find out how many people helped me make it. Selene left the dinner shaking with fury. Callahan did not chase her. He turned to the event manager and said, Miss Winslow will be paid for the full evening, including gratuity. If anyone complains, send them to my office. Maren's pride flared. I do not need you to buy my protection. I know, Callahan said quietly. That is why I am making sure no one charges you for someone else's cruelty. She had no answer for that. Later, outside by the water, Maren waited for her rideshare. The Manhattan skyline burned across the river. Callahan stepped out but kept distance between them. I found the message, he said. Her body went still. The one you think I sent? Yes. It was not from your phone. Maren closed her eyes. For 6 years, she had known the truth. Hearing him finally say it did not heal her. It reopened everything. I also found a deleted voicemail, he added. From you. That night. Maren turned to him. I called to tell you I was pregnant. Callahan looked like the words had struck him in the chest. She continued, quiet and merciless because truth had earned the right to be clear. I was standing in the rain with your child inside me, and you told me not to follow you. Callahan's face changed. Pain, shame, disbelief, then something deeper. I'm sorry, he whispered. Maren looked toward the skyline. Sorry is a door, Callahan. It is not a house. Mini cliffhanger. Before he could answer, her phone rang. Tessa's name lit up. Maren answered, and Tessa's panicked voice came through. Maren, someone came to the school asking questions about Noah. Maren did not remember ending the call. One moment she was standing beside the East River with Callahan 2 steps away, and the next she was already moving toward the street, heart pounding so hard she could hear it. Callahan followed but did not touch her. What happened? Someone asked about Noah at school, she said. Who? I do not know. Tessa is there now. Callahan's expression sharpened into something cold and useful. I will drive. No. Maren kept walking. I am not getting into your car because you suddenly feel guilty. Then I will call you a car and follow behind it." She stopped and turned. "This is not a negotiation. For once, neither is my son's safety," he said. "My son." The words escaped him before he earned them. Marin's eyes flashed. "Do not say that like you have carried him through fevers." Callahan took the hit without defending himself. "You are right. I have not. But if someone connected to my world went near him, I will not stand here and do nothing." Pattern interrupt. This is where many men make speeches. Callahan made calls. Within 30 seconds, Miles had school security footage requested through proper legal channels, a private security consultant on standby, and a family attorney waiting for Marin's consent before any action touched Noah. Callahan did not command Marin. He gave her options. That mattered. They arrived at the school 20 minutes later. Tessa stood near the entrance with Noah's teacher, Ms. Alvarez, who looked shaken. Noah was safe inside the office, coloring under the receptionist's watch. Marin went to him first. Always first. He ran into her arms. "Mom, did I do something wrong?" "No, baby, never." She held him tightly, then checked his face, his hands, his breathing, as if love could inventory safety. Callahan stood in the hallway, frozen by the sight. He had seen billion-dollar losses, hostile takeovers, board betrayals, market crashes. None of them had prepared him for watching his child ask if danger was his fault. Ms. Alvarez explained that a woman had called claiming to be from a scholarship foundation, asking for Noah's records, emergency contacts, and pickup authorization. When the school refused, a man arrived at the front desk with a business card and asked whether Noah's father was listed. He left when questioned. "Did he give a name?" Marin asked. Ms. Alvarez handed over the card. "Daniel Price." Callahan's face went still, Marin noticed. "You know him. He used to work for me." "Used to?" 6 years ago. Tessa looked between them. "Well, that is not suspicious at all." Callahan pulled out his phone. "Miles, find Daniel Price. Now." Then he looked at Marin. "With your permission, I want to pay for a security detail for Noah's school route until we know who sent him." Marin's first instinct was no. Not because protection was wrong, but because money from Callahan felt dangerous. Power always came with hooks. Callahan seemed to read it. No conditions. No cameras. No press. You choose the company, or I can have Miles send 3 options. I pay because this likely came from my past. You decide because he is your child. The phrase landed gently. Your child. Not mine. Not ours yet. Yours. Respect before claim. Marin nodded once. Send options. Relief flickered across his face, but he kept it contained. "Thank you." Noah peeked from behind Marin's coat. "Are you the sad man from the party?" Callahan crouched slowly so he would not tower over him. "Yes. My name is Callahan." Noah studied him. "I am Noah." "I know," Callahan said, voice rough. "It is a good name. Mom picked it. She is good at picking things." Callahan glanced at Marin. "Yes, she is." Noah looked at his face with unsettling seriousness. "Do you know how to fold paper airplanes?" Callahan blinked. "I used to. That means you forgot?" "Maybe." Noah considered this tragedy. "I can teach you." Marin looked away because the ache was too much. Callahan nodded solemnly. "I would like that." Later, after Noah was settled with Tessa for the night, Marin agreed to meet Callahan in a quiet conference room at the attorney's office. Not his office, not his penthouse, neutral ground. A female family attorney named Ruth Kaplan explained paternity options, child support, parental rights, and the importance of moving at Noah's emotional pace. Everything was painfully real. Forms, consent, DNA testing, legal fatherhood. Not cinematic, not simple. Maren appreciated that. Real life did not heal under chandeliers. It healed through paperwork people respected. Callahan listened without interrupting. When Ruth explained that Maren had the right to refuse immediate visitation, Callahan said, "Of course." When Ruth explained that financial support did not grant emotional access, he said, "I understand." When Ruth explained that Noah's needs came before his guilt, he said, "They should." Maren watched him carefully. This was not the man who had walked away. Or perhaps it was the same man finally stripped of certainty. After the meeting, Callahan placed a folder on the table. "This is not a demand. It is information." Maren did not touch it. "What is it?" "A trust proposal for Noah's education and medical needs. Controlled by an independent trustee you approve. I cannot access it. It does not require you to sign anything about custody. It does not buy forgiveness. It only covers what I should have been covering from the beginning." Maren stared at the folder. 6 years of anger rose in her throat. "We ate pasta 3 nights in a row once because I had $8 until Friday. Noah needed antibiotics, and I cried in the pharmacy parking lot because I had to choose between medicine and the electric bill. My mother sold her wedding ring to help me pay hospital fees after he was born. You do not get to hand me a folder and make that disappear." Callahan's face tightened, but he did not look away. "I know." "No, you do not. You can understand numbers. You cannot know what it felt like." He accepted that too. "You are right. I cannot know. But I can spend the rest of my life making sure you never carry consequences that belonged to me." Maren's eyes burned. She hated that part of her wanted to believe him. Daniel Price was found that night in a hotel near LaGuardia with a one-way ticket to Denver. Miles did not threaten him. He brought lawyers. Daniel broke faster than expected. By midnight, Callahan had a recorded statement. Daniel admitted Celine paid him through a shell company. He admitted deleting Maren's voicemail. He admitted helping send the fake message. But the final detail was worse. Celine had not acted alone. Someone in Callahan's family office had authorized the cover story because Maren was considered a threat to the Hartwell partnership. Mini cliffhanger. Callahan listened to the recording once. Then he removed his watch, set it on the desk, and said to Miles, "Bring me every name." The first name was Victor Reed, Callahan's uncle, chairman of the family office, the man who had taught Callahan how to read balance sheets, how to crush competitors, how to never apologize in negotiations because apology invited weakness. Victor had called Maren a distraction 6 years ago. He had smiled politely when introduced to her, then privately asked Callahan how long the charity project would last. Callahan remembered being angry, but not angry enough. That memory now disgusted him. The second name was Lydia Crane, the family office counsel who had processed the fake settlement trail. She had created the paper illusion that Maren accepted money, though the funds never touched Maren's account. The third name was Celine Hartwell. Not surprising, still unforgivable. Pattern interrupt. Betrayal rarely arrives alone. It comes with signatures, witnesses, polite emails, and people who later say they were only doing their job. Callahan requested a private board meeting for Reed Capital and a separate legal meeting with Hartwell Investments. Celine heard about both before noon and arrived at his office without an appointment, furious enough to forget elegance. Miles tried to stop her, but Callahan allowed her in. She swept into the boardroom wearing white as if innocence were a wardrobe choice. "You are dismantling a billion-dollar partnership over a waitress. she said. Callahan sat at the head of the long table. No, I am dismantling a fraud that used a waitress as collateral. Selene laughed. You sound noble. It does not suit you. He slid Daniel's signed statement across the table. Her eyes flicked down, then back up. Daniel is unstable. Then you will enjoy explaining the payment records. Celine's mouth tightened. Callahan, be careful. Your company benefits from Hartwell confidence. Your investors do not want emotional chaos. My son is not emotional chaos. The words filled the room. Celine blinked. There it was. Claim. Not for possession, for protection. She leaned forward. You do not even know if he is yours. I will by tomorrow. And if he is? Callahan's voice went cold. Then you stole 6 years from a child. Celine's mask cracked. I protected you. From what? From being trapped. From throwing away your future on a girl who would have dragged you into her little life. Callahan stood. Say one more word about her life. Celine stopped. Not because she was sorry. Because for the first time, she was afraid of him in the right way. He was not angry like a man embarrassed. He was angry like a father. Meanwhile, Maren tried to keep Noah's life normal. She took him to school. She made grilled cheese. She helped him sound out words in a library book. But normal had become fragile. Outside her apartment, a discreet security car waited at the curb, chosen by her from 3 options Miles provided. The guard was a retired female NYPD officer named Denise, calm, kind, and invisible when needed. Noah liked her because she carried peppermint candies. That night, Maren sat at the kitchen table while Noah colored. An Amazon box sat unopened by the door, holding school shoes she had bought on sale. Her phone buzzed. A message from Callahan. Daniel named my uncle and family office counsel. I am sorry. I will not hide this. Maren stared at the screen. Tessa, sitting across from her with tea, watched her face. What did he say? Maren handed her the phone. Tessa read it and whistled softly. Well, that is a rich people crime buffet. Maren almost laughed. Almost. Tessa leaned back. How do you feel? Angry. Good. What else? Tired. Fair. What else? Maren looked at Noah. Scared that if I let him in and he leaves again, Noah will be the one who breaks. Tessa's voice softened. Then do not let him in because he is sorry. Let him in only if he becomes consistent. Consistency is harder to fake than regret. The next day, DNA results came back. Callahan received them in his office with Miles present. He opened the envelope alone. Probability of paternity 99.99%. The room was silent. Callahan sat down slowly. He had known. His body had known from the moment Noah looked up in the ballroom. But proof did what instinct could not. It removed the last place denial could hide. Miles stood quietly. Congratulations, sir, he said, then seemed to realize the word was too simple for the grief in the room. Callahan folded the paper carefully. I missed his first word, his first steps, his first fever, his first birthday. Miles said nothing. Good assistants know when silence is mercy, Callahan continued, voice low. I used to think losing Maren was the worst thing that happened to me, but I was not the one paying for it. He called Ruth Kaplan and asked how to share the result properly with Maren. Ruth told him not to show up unannounced, not to overwhelm Noah, and not to make the moment about his pain. He listened. That evening, Maren agreed to meet him at a small Barnes & Noble cafe near Union Square, because it was public, quiet, and Noah loved the children's section. Callahan arrived early and sat with 2 coffees he did not touch. He looked out of place among paperbacks and tote bags, like a corporate weapon accidentally left in a place built for imagination. Maren came in wearing jeans, a beige coat, and no makeup. Noah was with Tessa at the children's shelves. Callahan stood when he saw her. She remained standing too. "I have the result," he said. She nodded. "And?" His eyes glistened. "He is my son." Maren looked down. It should have felt like victory. It did not. It felt like a door opening onto a room full of grief. She whispered, "I know." Callahan swallowed. "Thank you for raising him." The sentence was so simple that it nearly undid her. He did not say thank you for keeping him. He did not imply she owed him gratitude. He thanked her for the years he failed to give. She nodded once because anything more would become tears. Noah ran over holding a book about airplanes. "Mom, can we get this?" Then he saw Callahan. "Oh, hi, sad man." Callahan crouched. "Hi, Noah." Noah frowned. "Are you still sad?" "Yes," Callahan said, "but I am also very happy to see you." Noah considered that. "People can be both?" Maren answered before Callahan could. "Yes, people can be both." Noah held out the airplane book. "Do you know this one?" Callahan looked at the cover. "No." Noah smiled. "I can teach you this too." Mini cliffhanger. From across the bookstore, a man in a gray coat lifted his phone and snapped a photo of the 3 of them together. The photo appeared online the next morning. Not everywhere at first. Just one gossip account. Then a business newsletter. Then a larger tabloid with a headline designed to cut 3 people at once. Billionaire Callahan Reed's secret child? Mystery waitress seen with CEO and young boy. Maren saw it while packing Noah's lunch. Her hands went cold. They had blurred Noah's face, but not enough. His school bag was visible, her coat, Callahan's profile, the bookstore sign. Every private boundary suddenly felt thin as paper. Noah looked up from his cereal. "Mom?" Maren locked the phone and smiled too quickly. "Eat your breakfast, baby." Her iPhone rang. "Callahan." She answered in the hallway. "I am handling it," he said immediately. "Legal notices are going out. Security is increased. The site will take it down. How did they find us? I am finding out. That is not an answer." "No," he said, "it is not. But I will get you one." Pattern interrupt. This is where fear becomes rage. Not loud rage. Mother rage. The kind that folds laundry, signs forms, makes breakfast, and quietly decides no one gets another chance to endanger her child. By noon, Callahan had the answer. Cellini's publicist had fed the tip through a freelance photographer. The goal was to frame Maren as a woman surfacing with a child for money, forcing Callahan to deny or diminish her before the Hartwell Gala. Celine expected him to protect the company. She expected the old Callahan. She miscalculated the new father. Callahan went to Maren's apartment that afternoon, but he did not go upstairs until she said yes. He stood in the hallway holding no flowers, no jewelry, no dramatic peace offering, just a folder and a face stripped of sleep. Maren opened the door with the chain still on. "Good," Callahan said. "Keep that on." She stared at him. "That is your opening line?" "Yes, it is a good chain." Despite herself, she almost smiled. Almost. She closed the door, removed the chain, and let him in. Noah was at school. Elaine rested in the bedroom. The apartment was small, warm, and painfully human. Children's drawings on the fridge, a chipped mug near the sink, a citizen watch on the windowsill that had belonged to Maren's father. Callahan looked around, not with judgment, but with reverence. This was the home his son knew. This was the world Maren had built without him. He placed the folder on the table. Selena leaked the photo. Maren's expression did not change. I know. Callahan looked surprised. She hated being ignored. Now she hates being exposed. It fits. He opened the folder. I am filing for an emergency privacy order to protect Noah from press identification. Ruth says we can include school and residence protections. I need your approval. Maren read the first page carefully. Good. He also slid another paper forward. I am canceling the Hartwell partnership. Publicly. Tonight. Her eyes lifted. That will cost you. Yes. How much? A lot. Why? Because the price of keeping it is my son thinking his father is ashamed of him. Maren had no answer. This was the first time Callahan's money meant less than his choice. That evening, at Reed Capital's boardroom, Victor Reed exploded. You will not destroy a strategic alliance because of a personal embarrassment. Callahan sat calmly at the head of the table. His uncle stood near the window, red-faced, silver hair immaculate, morals bankrupt. Lydia Crane sat beside him, hands folded, already calculating liability. Callahan said, I know what you did. Victor scoffed. I protected you from a woman who was going to derail your life. She was pregnant. We did not know that. Callahan looked at Lydia. She did. Lydia's face went pale. The hospital inquiry was made through someone on your staff 2 days after Maren's first prenatal appointment. You knew enough to be afraid of the child. Victor slammed his hand on the table. Watch your tone. No, Callahan said. You watched me bury my life under a lie and called it leadership. Victor leaned forward. That girl would have taken everything. Callahan stood. She took nothing. You stole 6 years. The board members sat frozen. Miles distributed documents silently, one packet at a time. Payment records, metadata reports, Daniel's statement, legal exposure summary. Callahan did not raise his voice. That made it worse. Effective immediately. Victor Reed is removed from all advisory functions pending legal review. Lydia Crane is suspended and referred to outside counsel. Reed Capital withdraws from all Hartwell partnership negotiations. A board member cleared his throat. Callahan, the market reaction will be managed. The legal reaction, if we hide fraud, will not. Victor stared at him with hatred. You think this makes you noble? Callahan looked at him. No. It makes me late. That night, Selene hosted her pre-engagement donor event at the Ritz-Carlton, still believing she could corner him publicly. Cameras waited. Society pages waited. She wore red this time, a color chosen for dominance. When Callahan arrived alone, whispers stirred. Selene glided toward him, smile bright. Darling, you are late. He did not kiss her cheek. I was ending our business relationship. Her smile faltered. Not here. Especially here, he said. Maren was not supposed to attend. She wanted no part of spectacle. But Ruth advised that if her name and child were already being dragged into public, controlling the truth mattered. So Maren came, not through the service entrance this time, through the front doors. Wearing a simple black dress Tessa helped her choose. No diamonds, no borrowed glamour, just posture. Tessa walked beside her. Noah stayed safely with Elaine and Denise. When Maren entered, the room reacted. Selene saw her and understood too late. Callahan stepped onto the small stage before she could redirect the room. He took the microphone. Good evening. There will be no engagement announcement tonight. Gasps. Cameras lifted. Selena froze. Callahan continued. There will be a correction. 6 years ago, I believed a lie about Marin Winslow. I believed she took money from my family and disappeared. That was false. Marin stood at the back of the room, hands clasped, heart pounding. He did not look at her for permission to dramatize. He stuck to facts. Documents have been turned over to counsel. Individuals connected to my family office and Hartwell's circle manipulated communications, fabricated a payment trail, and erased information from me. The result was harm to an innocent woman and to a child who deserved better from every adult involved. Selena rushed toward the stage. Callahan, stop this. He looked at her. No. One word. Final. Miles signaled the screen. Evidence appeared in clean, unemotional sequence. Message metadata. Payment records. Daniel Price's sworn statement. The audience shifted from gossip hunger to legal terror. Celine's father stood, face gray. Reporters whispered into phones. Celine tried one last strike. She pointed at Marin. She kept the child from you. Marin stepped forward before Callahan could answer. No. I protected my son from a man who told me not to follow him before I could say I was pregnant. The room went silent. Her voice did not shake. I will not be ashamed of raising him alone. I will not be ashamed of working honest jobs. I will not be ashamed of surviving what powerful people did quietly. So if anyone in this room wants to look down on me, do it clearly. I have already survived worse than your opinion. For a moment, no one breathed. Then Tessa began clapping. One sharp clap, then another. Slowly, unexpectedly, others joined. Not everyone, but enough. Enough for Celine's face to collapse. Callahan stepped down from the stage and stood beside Marin. Not in front of her this time. Beside her, equal. He said softly, "Thank you for saying what I should have made safe for you to say years ago." Mini cliffhanger. But Celine, humiliated and cornered, reached into her clutch and pulled out one final weapon. A sealed medical document she claimed would prove Marin had planned to give Noah away. Selena held the document like a dagger. Her hand shook, but her smile returned in fragments. You all want truth? Fine. Ask Marin why she signed adoption inquiry papers when she was pregnant. Ask her why she was willing to hand that child to strangers before she realized Callahan was worth more as a father than a memory. The room turned again. People always turn. That is what crowds do. They follow the newest flame. Marin's face went pale, not with guilt, but with recognition. Callahan saw it and stepped toward Celine. Where did you get that? Celine lifted her chin. From someone who remembers that your saintly waitress had options. Pattern interrupt. The cruelest lies are the ones built around a piece of truth. Marin had gone to an adoption counseling office once. Not because she did not love Noah, because she was 22, alone, pregnant, broke, grieving, and terrified that love would not pay for diapers. She had sat in a beige waiting room for 14 minutes, holding a pamphlet while tears slipped silently down her face. Then she felt Noah move for the first time. A flutter, a whisper, a tiny insistence. She walked out before her name was called. She never signed adoption consent. She never gave him up, but shame remembers rooms even when you leave them. Selena knew exactly where to press. Marin walked forward slowly. Yes, she said. I went to an adoption counseling office. Gasps. Selene smiled in triumph. Callahan looked at Marin, but not with accusation, with sorrow. Marin continued. I was alone. I was pregnant. I had $37 in my checking account. My mother was sick. The man I loved had just looked at me like I was trash. So yes, for 14 minutes, I wondered if someone richer, safer, better could give my baby more than I could. Her voice broke slightly, but she did not let it fall apart. Then he moved. Just once. And I walked out. I chose him before anyone in this room knew his name. Silence deepened. This time it belonged to her. She turned to Celine. You found the saddest day of my life and tried to use it as a weapon. That tells everyone more about you than it does about me. Celine's face twisted. Callahan took the document from her hand. He scanned it. This is not a signed consent. It is an intake form. He looked at the footer, and this copy was obtained illegally from a private counseling center. Celine's father cursed under his breath. Ruth Kaplan, already present near the side of the room, stepped forward. Miss Hartwell, I strongly advise you to stop speaking. Celine laughed, unraveling. You think this ends me? Do you know how many people in this city owe my family favors? Callahan looked at the reporters. I hope they were listening. Then he turned to Marin. I am sorry. Not because the room needed to hear it, because she did. Marin held his gaze. Do not apologize for my fear. I earned my way through it. He nodded. Then I am sorry for being one of the reasons you had to. Celine was escorted out, not dragged, not screaming, but exposed. That was worse for someone like her. Her power depended on rooms believing her performance. Now every room had seen the mask slip. Over the following week, consequences arrived with quiet force. Hartwell Investments lost 2 major partners. Celine stepped down from the foundation board she had used as social cover. Lydia Crane surrendered her law license pending investigation. Victor Reed resigned from the family office under pressure from lawsuits and board action. Daniel Price entered cooperation with prosecutors. No one went to prison overnight because real justice takes paperwork, hearings, filings, and patience. But the fall had begun, and everyone knew it. More importantly, Noah's name disappeared from headlines under court order. His school changed pickup protocols. Marin's apartment building received added security without fanfare. Callahan paid for it through a legal arrangement Ruth structured, so Marin retained control. He did not announce it. He did not post statements about fatherhood. He showed up. First, at a supervised meeting in Central Park with Ruth's recommended child therapist nearby. Noah brought paper. Callahan arrived with no entourage, no suit jacket, just a navy sweater and fear hidden behind his eyes. Noah taught him how to fold a paper airplane. You fold the nose wrong, Noah said. That is why it crashes. Callahan nodded gravely. That explains several things about my life. Noah laughed. Marin looked away, overwhelmed by the sound. It was not forgiveness, but it was something alive. Second, Callahan attended a school event and stood in the back, not beside Marin unless invited. Noah waved at him once from the stage during a class song. Callahan nearly broke in public. Third, he sent Marin a list of every legal step he was taking regarding support, custody acknowledgement, and privacy protections, each one requiring her review, each one written without pressure. Fourth, he visited Elaine at the hospital after asking Marin's permission. He brought no luxury gift, just the medication receipt he had arranged to cover through a medical trust, and a humble apology Elaine studied for a long time before accepting with one sentence. Do not make my daughter pay twice for loving you. I will not, he said. Time passed in small scenes. A month, then 2. Marin did not melt into his arms because betrayal is not a fever that breaks overnight. She remained careful, sometimes cold, sometimes kind, sometimes both. Callahan did not complain. He had forfeited the right to impatience. One evening, after Noah fell asleep on the couch during a movie, Callahan helped carry him to bed. Maren watched from the hallway as he tucked the blanket around their son with almost painful care. He paused at the nightstand, where Noah had placed the bookstore airplane book beside a drawing. The drawing showed 3 stick figures in Central Park. One had long hair. One was small. One was tall and labeled Dad with a question mark. Callahan stared at the question mark for a long time. Maren saw his shoulders drop. Not dramatically. Quietly. Like a man accepting the weight he should have carried years ago. In the kitchen, he said, "I do not know how to earn that word." Maren poured tea. "You do not earn it with one grand gesture." "I know." "Do you?" He looked at her. "I am learning." She leaned against the counter. "Noah likes consistency. So do I. Then I will be consistent." She studied him. What happens when the press moves on? When guilt becomes less sharp? When fatherhood is not new anymore? Callahan answered without hesitation. "I stay." Maren wanted to believe him. That was the dangerous part. Mini cliffhanger. Then he reached into his coat and placed something on the kitchen table. Not a ring, not a check. The original voicemail recovery report from 6 years ago, with an audio file attached. Maren stared at the report on the table. The kitchen seemed to shrink around it. The hum of the refrigerator grew louder. From Noah's room came the soft creak of the building settling into night. Callahan did not touch the file again. "I asked the forensic team to recover what they could," he said. "They found partial audio from the deleted voicemail. I have not listened to it." Maren looked up sharply. "Why?" "Because it belongs to you first." Her anger had prepared for many things, not that. She sat slowly. For 6 years, she had imagined the voicemail as a ghost. She remembered recording it with rain on her face, cars rushing behind her. Her hand pressed to her stomach as she tried not to sob. She remembered saying his name. She remembered thinking if he heard her voice, he would come back. He never heard it. Now the ghost sat on her kitchen table, waiting. Pattern interrupt. Sometimes closure does not knock. It arrives as a file you are afraid to open. Maren pressed play. Static came first. Wind, traffic. Then her younger voice, shaking and breathless. "Callahan, please pick up. I do not know what they told you, but it is not true. I did not take anything. I would never." The audio cracked, then returned. "I came because I have to tell you something before you leave. I am pregnant." There was a sound like a sob swallowed before it could become one. "I am scared, but I wanted you to hear it from me, not from anyone else. I love you. Please do not let them make you hate me before you talk to me." The audio dissolved into rain, then nothing. Maren covered her mouth. Callahan stood motionless, devastation stripped bare across his face. The room held 6 years of silence and finally gave it a voice. He whispered, "I am so sorry." Maren closed the laptop gently. This time, the apology did not feel like a door. It felt like standing in the ruins and admitting there had once been a house. She did not comfort him. That was important. His pain was real, but it was his to carry. After a long silence, she said, "I needed you then, I know. I do not need you that way now. I know that too. But Noah might. And maybe—" She stopped. He waited. "Maybe I need time to find out who I am when I am not defending myself from the past." Callahan nodded. Take it. All of it. No deadline. No pressure. Outside, snow began falling over Queens, quiet and indifferent. The city softened at the edges. Callahan left that night without touching her, though every part of him wanted to hold what he had lost. At the door, Marin said his name. Callahan turned. Not Mr. Reed this time. Callahan. A small mercy. She said, Be there Saturday at 10. Noah has a science fair. His project is terrible and he is very proud of it. A faint, broken smile touched Callahan's face. I would not miss it. He did not. He arrived Saturday at 9:40 with coffee for Marin, hot chocolate for Noah, and no assumption that the seat beside them belonged to him. Noah's project was a lopsided volcano that erupted mostly onto the table and partly onto Callahan's sleeve. Noah looked horrified. Callahan looked at the red baking soda foam dripping from his cuff and said, I have had board meetings end worse. Noah burst out laughing. Marin did too before she could stop herself. Callahan looked at her then, not triumphant, not hungry, just grateful to witness sound he had missed for years. Life did not become perfect. It became possible. Selena's legal downfall continued in the background, but Marin stopped checking updates obsessively. At first, she wanted every consequence like oxygen. Then she realized the best revenge was not watching Selene fall. It was waking up without Selene in her mind. Callahan created a foundation in Noah's name for single parents pursuing nursing degrees, but he did not put Marin's face on it, did not turn her pain into branding, did not make a speech about redemption. He simply funded it and let other women receive help without knowing the full story behind it. Marin returned to school part-time, slowly, carefully. She bought used textbooks, then cried in the parking lot because this time the tears were not from fear. Tessa celebrated by bringing Starbucks and a ridiculous balloon that said genius at work. Noah asked if this meant Mom would wear a doctor coat. Marin said nurse, maybe. Noah said, nurses are cooler. They know where the bandages are. Callahan framed Noah's first drawing without the question mark after Dad. He kept it in his office beside the Mont Blanc pen he no longer used to sign cold decisions without reading the human cost beneath them. Victor Reed tried once to contact him privately. Callahan refused. Some boundaries are not bitterness. They are protection with a locked door. Months later, Central Park turned gold with autumn. The air carried that crisp New York brightness that makes every ordinary thing look like memory. Noah ran ahead with a paper airplane, shouting for Callahan to watch. Marin walked slower, hands in the pockets of her coat. Callahan stayed beside her, not too close, not too far. He had learned distance could be respectful. Noah launched the airplane. It flew crooked, dipped, then somehow caught a breeze and sailed farther than expected. Noah cheered like he had conquered gravity. Callahan laughed, openly. Marin watched him, then looked away before he caught how much it moved her. But he caught it anyway. He had become better at noticing without taking. Marin, he said. She looked at him. I love you. She went still. He continued quickly, not to pressure, but to clarify. You do not have to answer. I am not saying it to receive something. I am saying it because hiding the truth once ruined all of us. So I will not hide this one. Marin looked across the park where Noah chased the airplane through fallen leaves. For years, love had felt like danger. Like a door someone could close in her face, like a word men used before leaving. But this was different. Not because Callahan was perfect, he was not. Not because the past had vanished, it had not. It was different because he had stopped asking to be trusted and started becoming trustworthy. She said softly, "I do not want a perfect man. I want a man who stays." Callahan's voice was low. "Then I will stay until you believe it." She looked at him for a long time. Then she reached for his hand. Not dramatically, no orchestra, no crowd, just fingers meeting in the cold. A choice. Noah turned and saw them, his grin spread wide. "Are we getting pizza after this?" Maren laughed through sudden tears. "Yes, baby, we are getting pizza." Callahan squeezed her hand once. The Manhattan skyline stood beyond the trees. No longer a cage, no longer a symbol of everything that had separated them. Just a skyline. Just a city. Just a place where broken things could become whole in a different shape. Final emotional turn. 6 years had been stolen. They would never get them back. Noah's first steps would remain a story Callahan heard instead of witnessed. Maren's hardest nights would remain hers. The voicemail would always exist. The rain would always be part of them. But the future had opened quietly, and this time, no one walked away. The Stoic lesson came not as a speech, but as the way Maren lived. You cannot control who lies about you. You cannot control who misunderstands you. You cannot control the years someone else wastes. But you can control whether betrayal makes you cruel. You can control whether pain makes you abandon your dignity. You can control the moment you stop begging to be believed and start living so truth has somewhere to return to. Maren Winslow had not won because a billionaire loved her. She had won because when she had nothing, she still chose honor. She chose her child. She chose herself. And when love came back, late and humbled, she did not let it erase her pain. She made it earn a place beside her peace. That is the kind of woman no lie can destroy. That is the kind of love that does not rescue her from life, but walks beside her through it. And that is why, when Noah's paper airplane finally landed near their feet, Callahan picked it up, handed it back to his son, and said, "Try again." Noah smiled. Maren smiled. And this time, when the little plane lifted into the air, all three of them watched it fly. If this story touched your heart, tell us in the comments where you are watching from, and rate this story from 0 to 10. And remember, sometimes the strongest woman in the room is not the one who shouts. It is the one who survives the lie, protects her heart, and still knows how to love when the truth finally comes home. And just like that, the story comes to an end. But let me ask you something, my dear friends. You're still here, right? If you've stayed with me until this moment, then something in this story must have touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. So let's look at it together, just you and me. This wasn't just a story about love lost and found. It was about dignity, about choosing who you become when life doesn't go the way you deserved. Maren didn't win because someone came back for her. She won because she never abandoned herself. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And that's the truth, isn't it? We can't control who misunderstands us, who leaves too soon, or who believes the wrong story about us. But we can control how we rise after that. Maybe you've been in a place like Maren, misjudged, alone, tired. And maybe, just maybe, this is your reminder. You don't need anyone to come back in order to be whole again. So if this story stayed with you, if it made you feel something real, go ahead and like the video, share it with someone who needs it. And don't forget to subscribe. Because stories like this, they don't just entertain, they heal. This story is a work of fiction created for entertainment and emotional storytelling purposes. While it reflects realistic human experiences such as relationships, misunderstandings, and personal growth, the characters, events, and situations are entirely imagined and not based on any specific real individuals or verified incidents. The narrative is designed to inspire reflection, empathy, and emotional connection, rather than present factual or journalistic content. Any similarities to real people or events are purely coincidental. Our goal is to share meaningful stories that explore resilience, dignity, and healing in a relatable way. Viewers are encouraged to interpret the message as a source of emotional insight and personal reflection, not as a depiction of real-life events or advice.